Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have Neha Kirpal with us today. Neha is co-founder at Amaha, formerly Inner Hour. She is a social entrepreneur. Today we're going to talk about mental health, specifically in India, nonprofits, and social startups, which are my favorite breed of startups. So this podcast is brought to you by podfire.com. If you want to start your own podcast and monetize it, I help you do that with lead generation, finding sponsors, and also getting paid through YouTube AdSense. So go to podfire.com. We have a free ebook explaining how we do that. Neha, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Thank you. Thanks, Charles. Thanks for having us here. Well, Amaha is really a labor of love. It's something that my business partner, Dr. Amit Malik, and I have been running. It's now the largest mental health organization in the country. We reach about 600 cities and towns. We have a clinical team of over 200. And we work with adults and children, so across the lifespan, to provide care for a whole range of mental health conditions. And he's a psychiatrist. I'm very much coming at this from my own personal lived experiences as a caregiver for severe mental illness in my family. And so, very passionate about this. Made a big transition from running an international art fair for a decade before switching over and now behind some of these mental health organizations.
Love that. Yeah, so let's start with your background. 17 years at India Art Fair. So why did you started that one, and how come you lasted 17 years doing that? Most people can't even last 2 years running a startup.
Well, so the art fair was something that I started right after college, actually, and it was an experiment to see if we could set up something that is world class. But here in India, I'm very passionate about the creative industries and building platforms and sort of creating an ecosystem. And so the arts, very much like mental health, sort of stood out as a sector that needed a bit of bringing together. The India Art Fair started in 2008 and I ran it for 10 years actually. And then I sold the business to the folks who run Art Basel, and MCH is the organization. And so today it's no longer with me, but I really enjoy visiting it. And I spent 10 years in that space before moving to mental health, which again is a very fragmented space that needs a sort of an ecosystem catalyzing effort, which is what we're up for now.
Right. And what did you learn from that? How did that actually lead you to mental health? What's your story?
I think, I mean, while there isn't an obvious link between art and mental health, I think the story for me really is that I was always meant to work in mental health. I've seen a lot of trauma and challenges right from my early childhood, and I've been very passionate about solving for mental health at scale, building systemic solutions, really centering around communities and families, and building the kind of care that one would want for oneself. It took me a while to sort of finish my own process, I suppose, of grieving and healing and going through my own mental health challenges in the family before I was ready to take that on. The art fair came along actually as the interim. And so I think fundamentally, I like to imagine possibilities and build businesses that are perhaps slightly unconventional, slightly, in sectors that are difficult to navigate, where the players in the ecosystem have not quite sort of yet come together, and really be able to string divergent sort of stakeholders together into a sort of I suppose, a common purpose and an outcome. That really was what the art fair was. It became something of a place that brought the Indian art community together and also brought global attention to India. And that model really of making art accessible, democratizing art, bringing it into the public, and putting it in the hands of a common man, in a sense, is similar to the mental health journey now, where we're really creating a quality at scale model to put mental health care in an easy access, tech enabled, digital, and it's a hybrid digital and physical centers. So we have a digital platform that reaches about 5 million, touches 5 million lives now. And as I mentioned, we work in 18 languages across 600 cities. And it's all about building quality care at scale. and reaching them to people when they need it and how they need it. So there's a lot of communities online, there's a lot of content, there's assessments, but then there's also psychiatrists and therapists who you can see either physically or online. So that's sort of the hybrid omni-channel model approach to build an ecosystem for mental health care, similar to what happened in the art world, actually, in my case. So lots of learning there to build on.
Right. And in what markets are you predominantly? How do you differentiate yourself from BetterHelp?
I think, well, so for us, our entire focus is India. So it was for me in the art fair as well. India is a massive market. I mean, when it comes to mental health, India's got a third of the world's burden for mental illness, third of the world's depressed, suicides, addiction cases are here. 200 million people with diagnosed mental health conditions before COVID. So for us, just focusing on India and providing the full stack solution, right from sort of early intervention and primary care, making sure we work with schools, with colleges, we work with over 150 corporates, and really providing that early care as a preventative approach, all the way to providing inpatient care as well. We're opening our first hospital now in Bangalore, and we intend to build about 40 across the country in the next 5 or 7 years. So with that, we're able to provide end-to-end mental health care. And no matter what condition you're trying to solve for, whether it's addiction or psychosis, bipolar, depressive disorders, or simply relationship challenges, peer pressure, you should be able to come to one branded solution that you can trust that has psychiatrists and therapists working together. And we're really focused on building evidence-based, high-quality, sort of tech-enabled support systems for mental health.
And what are the advantages and disadvantages of getting psychotherapy online vs physically?
Well, different things work for different people. I mean, we see and we've seen right through COVID as well. I mean, we started with a 26-member team just before COVID. Today, we're at 220 or thereabouts. And so we can see that there's a massive sort of uptake in mental health services in the country, of course, over the last few years, but also that people are very comfortable with hybrid models. So we see people come in sometimes for their first session offline and then go online, or they just prefer to have it online and it's more private for them, and the outcomes are great as well, and so in that sense it's really what works for different people. Sometimes in more severe cases where maybe they need some medication consultation, psychiatrists and therapists working together, sometimes in those cases where they need a bit more hand holding, it's better to do it offline. And so for that reason we have centers in Delhi, Mumbai and Bangalore. We've got about 8 centers now, and people can go in and consult in person and then continue their journey online. So we can provide them tools and resources and access to a whole lot of infrastructure in the digital space in between sessions as well. In a sense, there's both work, and it's really dependent on what people prefer and what is the challenge they're dealing with at the moment.
Interesting. How did you grow the company so fast, or was it a slow process?
Well, in a way, I mean, as unfortunate as it is, COVID really fast-tracked the uptake of mental health services. For us in India, the challenge is not the demand. There is a massive inflow of interest for people seeking these services, and there's a big deficit. India has only about 8 or 10,000 psychiatrists and therapists. So this problem is never going to be solved by professionals alone. You have to build a systemic solution. You have to be able to triage and sort of use task shifting, aided by technology, to be able to provide care at scale. And so for us, really, we decided to go down the venture funding route for the services business. 2 years ago, we acquired India's largest child and adolescent mental health service as well. It's called Children First. And so together, the two organizations are able to now cater to the whole family's needs for mental health care. And the model really is simple: to be able to bring in on our payrolls the psychiatrists and therapists who work with us, and thereby we're ensuring a degree of quality and compliance. There's a peer supervision. Everything happens on the platform. They're able to sort of review their notes. They're able to have a connected connection with the clients in between sessions as well. And in that sense, we're able to create a whole team approach. And so, what people get is really the cumulative knowledge of an entire team of psychiatrists and therapists who are working together at the back end. for that one client's sort of best outcomes. So in that sense, we've grown, and the idea of providing a full stack model. I mean, we initially started with some angel funding, and then brought in an Indian fund to come in. And recently, we were joined by Fireside. So Lightbox and Fireside are the two funds that back us, and we're now on the journey of opening these inpatient centers as well, with the under the same umbrella. We've also set up a not-for-profit to train psychiatrists and therapists, and also train community-based workers. So it's called the India Mental Health Alliance. And what it does is really build capacity among organizations and among professionals for mental health. So that is a new initiative that we rolled out last year.
Do you feel AI can help with mental health, or is it something that will accelerate mental health decline at scale?
I suppose, I mean, with technology, it's really a tool, right? So it's a question of where and how you apply it and towards what outcome. For us, we massively use AI as a way of being able to scale our, scale all the work that we're doing, to be able to support the clinicians, to be able to do note taking, to be able to do the data analysis, and really be able to improve the outcomes, create the modeling in a way that we are able to support our clinicians with the use of AI, and the longitudinal data that we're able to collect across sort of the cases we see. As I mentioned last year, for example, we did 100,000 sessions. Now there's a lot of learnings that we're going to be able to bring into the system. At the same time, what we want to be very careful of is not directly sort of put AI in front of people, especially when they're at risk, or they have severe, moderate to severe risk, or they're suicidal. In those cases, you have to be very careful. There are a lot of organizations who lead primarily with AI, and they don't necessarily have the clinical expertise within the organization, or the human expertise that is needed to actually navigate the relationships, and navigate certain diagnosis process and treatment processes. That is where it becomes a challenge, because you do really need the right sort of evidence-based evaluation before you create a care plan, and then approach it in a way that you can literally handhold the clients through their journey. So there's a role AI plays, and certainly it's a very important, and very important when you're trying to scale quality care, and be able to provide it in a consistent, systemic, sort of scalable way. But at the same time, I think either on its own is inadequate. Both AI and human sort of involvement on its own is inadequate. And so it's really the bringing together in a safe way that sets the right formula for quality at scale.
Right. Yeah, I think AI has huge potential on the psychotherapy level, because it's always there for you, right? Like, your psychotherapist might be busy, plus most cost $300 an hour in America, and GPTs, they don't forget, right? So they can like stack up all your data, while psychotherapists are still like hands note taking. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, for early intervention, as a support system, as a information giving tool, all of that, there's a lot of use case for that, So, I mean, we see so many apps and bots coming up today that are around loneliness, around being caregiver support, about providing information. All of that sort of makes sense. I think the only thing I'm mindful of, at least for us in our organization, is that we must ensure, because we deal with high risk and moderate to severe mental illness as well, it's really important to be able to triage properly and make sure that you are dealing with high risk in a certain way, and so that is just something to be really mindful of. If you're an organization that is purely a preventative, early intervention, community based app, let's say you're a college campus based platform, or you're a youth-based platform, and your scope is limited to providing just the support and the listening and the empathetic environment, then that makes sense. But in our context, because we work with severe cases as well, we have a limited use case at the moment at the front end for AI. At the back end, of course, it is massively helpful in, as I said, doing all the predictive modeling and building out the data sets that can really inform and create sort of better outcomes in the long term.
Generally speaking, do you feel the world's mental health is going in the good direction? Is it improving, or is it just getting worse? And there are more and more problems with the internet, with AI, with all the political discourse nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the writing is on the wall when it comes to that, right? I mean, COVID, of course, the silent, the mental health challenges has been sort of the silent pandemic alongside COVID. But even otherwise, I mean, if you look at the way the world is going, the kind of crisis, trauma, climate anxiety, digital addictions, rise of all sorts of substances and alcoholism and so on. India, of course, has a rising suicide rate, which is, suicide is the second largest cause of death in the 15 to 29 age group, right? And then you have challenges around livelihood and poverty and unemployment and so on. I think overall, we are really in a very, very sort of rapid way on a downward spiral when it comes to mental health conditions as well as mental illness. And we need support and awareness at every level, from early detection and early prevention. It takes people anything between sort of 5 to 15 years to get to their first mental health appointment. And so it's really important to be able to make people aware in schools, in colleges, in workplaces, in our homes and communities, so that they have the language for it, they understand what it is, they're able to recognize the signs early enough, because the earlier you intervene, the better the outcomes of recovery. And then to be able to get the right help in the right way that works for them. All of this is absolutely critical, because yes, it is true that we are really on a big downward spiral, and this problem is escalating. It's already out of hand in many parts of the world, and the infrastructure, the policies, the funding, as well as the people required to actually deal with it are massively under resourced and unavailable in many parts of the world. When it comes to mental health, all countries are developing countries. So there's no place that is sort of can claim that we've cracked our mental health challenges and we're on top of it in terms of infrastructure and systemic solutions. Everyone is struggling in one way or another, and it really shows that we need to actually lean on each other and build models that we can learn and from each other, and then apply across the world, but really build capacity using technology and humans in the right ratio and in the right way, and build as much awareness so that we put care in the hands of communities, in the hands of parents, in the hands of school teachers, and we don't escalate the problems so that they need professional care. So it's at every level, it's rapid, it's widespread, and it's a real growing concern and problem that is hit a crisis level already. And we're now only trying to play catch up.
Yeah, I mean, cutting off social relationships. I don't know if there's any other worse move that could have been done. Humans got scared by COVID, rightfully, but yeah, it really made the situation worse, and I think most people weren't prepared mentally. Even before that, what I've seen is the lack of people moving their bodies. I think our
Mhm.
ancestors did that and did not struggle as much for moving themselves and creating all these nice cocktail of chemicals in their brain, endorphins, serotonin, and all the good feeling hormones. So you put them in a wall, they don't move themselves, they're cut off their relationships, you get yeah, recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Um, Thankfully, you're sort of bringing a remedy to that. What will be your priorities with Amaha next for this year, 2025?
Well, for this year, really, it is about scaling our services. We are rapidly growing our team, and we're adding multiple therapists and psychiatrists that we are first training and then bringing in every month. And so it's really about just being able to reach more care to more people in more languages across the country. That's the sort of primary goal. We are opening our inpatient centers. We'll have our first one or two hospitals this year, and with that, we're able to provide support at the severest end of the spectrum, which is very much needed. There was a study out saying India needs 36,000 mental health beds already, and we are, at scale looking to build only about 1,000. So it's really a massive need, and even though we are the largest in the country, we'll only be sort of fulfilling a very small segment to begin with. So there's plenty of scope for other organizations to come in, plenty of scope for people to come in and fund this space and build more services that can deliver quality care across the country. India is a vast country, and it's very different. Different parts of the country have very different needs, not just language, but culturally and in every way. And we have to recognize that mental health challenges are not an individual problem. It is not experienced individually. As you said, relationships are important. Where we're placed in society and in communities is important. And so much of that interaction, of that entire sort of biopsychosocial loop, is what creates good mental health. And what is missing in that loop is what creates the challenges. So, right from our biology, our genetic makeup, our early childhood experiences, trauma we carry through our lives, onto like climate anxiety and anxiety of conflict and war and politics and all sorts of things, is all just sort of building up. And then, of course, you have the work-life balance challenges and stressors of livelihood and economic and relational challenges. All of that is adding up. So it's something that we really need to sort of take care of. And so for us, that's really the priority. Provide support at the severest end of the spectrum, build that out so that we have a full service model, so that no matter where people are at on their journey of getting care or in distress, we're able to provide them with the right kind of support at the right time.
Right. And last question related to that. It seems to me that we're sort of hitting the limits of capitalism, right? Humans reuniting themselves in a metropolis, then being caged by a government. Don't go out of your house in between four walls. We're seeing presidents being elected just on the basis that they've made it financially before, and they're running a country like a business. It seems to me that we've really reached the apex of that. On your end, you're building social startups. I think that's the future of companies, not just making money for the purpose of making money, right? But also doing good, helping your community. How do you make sure to stay competitive, right? Stay afloat, have nice margins, making profits while doing good at the same time?
Yeah, yeah, this value for good is so critical. I mean, both the investors that we have on first Lightbox as well as Fireside are big believers that businesses, in order to be truly relevant in the long term, have to be able to do good for humanity and or good for the planet, or both. And so for us, it is a massive commitment to saying that we must align our incentives and motivations with the best interests of our clients. And we are in a space that is like that. I mean, the more services we are able to build and provide across the entire spectrum of offerings, the better it is for our clients across the board. And so in that sense, there's a positive alignment in that, and it is not something that is taking away from people. The other factor that is important is that, while you have many brands that touch the lives of people, but there are very few that touch the lives of people so deeply, where you're expecting people to trust you as an organization, where they find it hard to trust themselves even at that stage of life. And so to really be able to earn trust, build it, and maintain that trust is about the hand holding and the care and the management of the mental health journey that they go through, but also to deliver the outcomes and in a way to ensure lasting recovery by providing them the tools in their communities, in their homes. So, how do you ensure that the outcomes last? How do you ensure that more and more people are talking about your service in a way that it's really sort of been transformational in their lives? Is really our North Star, and it's something that we hold on to. From the point of view of building a large scale business, I mean, we're in a sector now that we have the first mover advantage. We've built what is now the largest in the country, and it is truly an omni-channel platform that has a massive in-house tech capability, with a massive in-house tech capability as well as the entire clinical capacity in-house. And we're being able to protocolize, systematize, and build templates that are really evidence-based for everything that we are doing. And so in that way, we're able to ensure that we are sort of managing our quality metrics and in a sense have quite a sort of a large scale ecosystemic foundational advantage when it comes to a country like India. I also believe that models like ours are important to look at and perhaps borrow aspects of that and replicate in other parts of the world. So there are lots of conversations that we are often in with the Middle East, with other parts of Asia, and across certain organizations where we're talking about best practices and seeing how we can learn from each other, and really build sort of more efficient healthcare systems across the world.
Neha, thank you for the value you've added today. Where can people find out more about you?
Well, they're welcome to go to our website. Our organization is called Amaha, so it's www.amahahealth.com. And we have a children and adolescents mental health organization called Children First. So that's childrenfirstindia.com. And of course, as I mentioned, the India Mental Health Alliance, which is our not-for-profit entity to build capacity and build an alliance. So organizations across the SDGs, across the development sector globally can join an alliance that makes mental health resources, convenings, and ambassadorship models available. And so very welcome to look at indiamentalhealthalliance.org. And these are the organizations that I'm a part of, and very happy to connect.
That was Neha